A pleasant morning to the Honorable Prime Minister, John Briceño, Prime Minister of Belize, his ministers, ministers of state and members, to the Leader of the Opposition, Honorable Moses Barrow, his members, and our esteemed Madam Speaker. Let us pray. Almighty and eternal God, who through Jesus Christ has revealed your glory to all nations, please protect and preserve Belize, our beloved country. God of might, wisdom, and justice, please assist our Belizean government and people with your Holy Spirit of counsel and fortitude. Let the light of your divine wisdom direct their plans and endeavors, so that with your help we may attain our just objectives. With your guidance, may all our endeavors tend to peace, social justice, liberty, national happiness, the increase of industry, sobriety, and useful knowledge. We pray, O God of mercy, for all of us, that we may be blessed in the knowledge and sanctified in the observance of your most holy law, that we may be preserved in union and in that peace which the world itself cannot give. And after enjoying the blessings of this life, please admit us, Lord, to that eternal reward that you have prepared for those who love you. Amen.
Announcement by the Speaker.
Good morning, members. I take the opportunity to alert members that today, June 30th, marks the International Day of Parliamentarism, and I would like to take the opportunity not only to recognize all members in the Parliament, but to recognize the staff who work for Parliament on this particular day. It's the one day dedicated really to them. And so with your indulgence, I'd like us to give them a round of applause, if you will, for all that they do for you.
Bills brought from the Senate.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment.
Madam Speaker, I rise to move that the House do now consider the Senate amendments.
Honorable members, the question is that the House do now consider the Senate amendments. All those in favor kindly say aye. Aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
The Lottery Controls Bill amendment agreed by the Senate brought to the House for approval. Clause 2, Clause 3, Clause 4, Clause 5, Clause 6,
Honorable members, the question is that the amendments as proposed by the Senate to the Lotteries Control Amendment Bill 2023 be accepted. All those in favor kindly say aye. Aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it. I recognize the Honorable Minister of Education, Culture, Science and Technology.
Madam Speaker, I rise to move that the House do now consider the Senate amendments for the Extradition Bill 2023.
Honorable members, the question is that the House do now consider the Senate amendments. All those in favor kindly say aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Extradition Bill amendment agreed by the Senate brought to the House for approval. Clauses 10, Clause 13, Clause 14, Clause 15, Clause 16, Clause 7, subsection 5B, Clause 17, subsection 5B, Clause 18, Clause 19, Clause 22, Clause 26, Clause 39, Schedule 7.
Honorable members, the question is that the amendments as proposed by the Senate to the Extradition Bill 2023 be accepted. All those in favor kindly say aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Presentation of report from Select Committee.
I recognize the Honorable Chairperson of the Finance and Economic Development Committee.
Madam Speaker, I rise to lay on the table reports number HR 205/1/13, report from the Finance and Economic Development Committee on the Inter-American Development Bank Skills for the Future program, US $15 million, loan motion 2023. Number HR 206/1/13, report from the Finance and Economic Development Committee on the International Banking Amendment Number 2, Bill 2023. Number HR 207/1/13, report from the Finance and Economic Development Committee on the Domestic Banks and Financial Institutions Amendment Number 2, Bill 2023.
Honorable members, those reports are ordered to lie on the table.
Questions to ministers?
I recognize the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, member from Mesopotamia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Pleasant good morning to you and to colleagues on both sides of the aisle, as well as the people in Mesopotamia and all those tuned in. Will the Minister of Sustainable Development please tell this Honorable House to what extent Puerto Rico has complied with its obligations under the terms and agreement of the April 9th, 2021 Environmental Compliance Plan to submit necessary documents and commence their port project within the 2-year deadline fixed by said Environmental Compliance Plan.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Sustainable Development, Climate Change and Disaster Risk Management.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in relation to the question posed by the Leader of the Opposition, he refers and makes mention of his question to Puerto Rico. I want to assume that he means Puerto Rico Enterprises Limited, the special purpose vehicle for Magical Belize. Madam Speaker, it would want to appear that the member from Mesopotamia is asking the same question that others closely related to the one calling the tune. In other words, there are, it seems, many pipers, or if you may, tutors, if you will. But the Port of Magical project was granted environmental clearance on April 9, 2021, After having gone through the environmental impact assessment process, the environmental compliance plan was a requirement of the environmental clearance letter and was signed on the same day as usually done with most, if not all, projects. The project was granted clearance in 6 phases. Phase 1 was the submission of a detailed engineering design of the peninsula, taking into consideration minimizing the potential negative impact from current flows southwards and manatee movements along the seashore. 2, the development and submission of a manatee management plan. And 3, submission of a rapid ecological assessment looking at soil bearing and load capacity for the access road dewatering site. Phase 2 was for the construction of an all-weather road within Crown Lands, connecting the project site to the George Price Highway, its infrastructure with proper drainage subbase, and a bridge over the Suboon River, the clearing of land in preparation for the dewatering site, and the construction of the containment dewatering site. Phase 3 would then entail dredging of usable material from the turning basin and access channel for disposal in the water containment site, and also the construction of outer and intermediate bound for the peninsula. Phase 4 would entail the dredging of usable material for filling of the peninsula and retreat island, the fencing of the project site to comply with the international ports requirements, the pavement and finishing of the access road, the construction of beaches, the retreat island, and creation of inland waterways. Phase 5, the construction of an explorer center, construction of buildings, swimming pools, water parks, kiosks, changing rooms and bathrooms, intermodal center for port operations, a utility area, pedestrian walkways, and a manatee center. The construction of overwater beach bungalows, the construction of the cruise jetties and trestleways, the construction of road networks within the artificial peninsula, and a bridge interconnecting the retreat island to the artificial peninsula. On phase 6, the final phase, the construction of an aerial tram from the peninsula to the northern lagoon, construction of a cultural center, the lagoon center, and the construction of cruise jetty number 3 for the accommodation of a total of 6 cruise ships, hotel and casino, and termination and testing and commissioning. And all structures, Madam Speaker, were approved based on the conceptual master plans submitted. Each phase must be completed by at least 50% before subsequent phases can commence. The ECP granted a 2-year period for the implementation of the terms and conditions of the ECP, which the company has met. Kindly note that as per phase 1 of the signed ECP, Port of Magical has, on July 12, 2022, submitted the detailed design of the peninsula. The design was prepared by Boskalis, a dredging and engineering company from Netherlands with 115 years of experience. Design was forwarded to the former chief engineer at MIDH on July 20, 2022 for their input. The company also informed the DOE of the status of the manatee management plan, the rapid ecological assessment, the dewatering site, soil investigations, and the status was that these documents were being prepared as per conditions of the ECP and would be submitted shortly. On August 2, 2022, the company submitted a request for permission to conduct core sampling that will generate information for the establishment of essential infrastructure on the project site. A letter of no objection was granted to the company on August 18, 2022. On April 11, 2023, the company also submitted to the DOE the management plan for the Antillean manatee, which has been shared with the Fisheries Department. The company is responsible to implement the plan with the Fisheries Department and local NGOs. A reclamation work plan, which is being reviewed by the DOE and the mining unit of the Ministry of Natural Resources. Also, they submitted a draft water quality monitoring program, which has been reviewed and feedback provided to the company. emergency response plans as per requirement 3.13 of the ECP, which are being reviewed by the DOE at the moment. On June 6, 2023, the first draft rapid ecological assessment was submitted for review, and the Department of Environment responded to strengthen the assessment on June 16, 2023. Note that no inspection has been conducted since the signing of the ECP because no substantive physical work has begun on site, and as per Phase 1, none is absolutely required. A joint inspection with the Belize Port Authority, Mining Unit, Fisheries Department, Forest Department, Coastal Zone Management Authority is scheduled for June 30th. This site inspection will reveal if any non-compliance exists at the project site level, which then will be presented to the company in writing with a reasonable time frame for the issues to be resolved or addressed. So, in terms of the compliance status, and based on the above that I have mentioned, it is the opinion of the DOE that Port of Magical is currently in compliance with their ECP because Phase 1 deals mostly with the submission of designs, plans, and specifications which the company has done. The DOE will follow up with MIDH to ascertain if the detailed engineering design meets their requirement. If not, they will be required to engage with Port of Magical on this aspect. Also, the Manatee Management Plan should be reviewed, approved, and implemented by the Fisheries Department, a local NGO, and the company. The DOE will follow up with the Fisheries Department on this matter. And lastly, the DOE is reviewing the draft Rapid Ecological Assessment, which has provided initial feedback for improvement after the final version is submitted. A core group from the NIAC, which will comprise the DOE, Fisheries Department, Coastal Zone Management Authority, the Belize Port Authority, academia, and an NGO will review the final REA to advise the DOE on the way forward. So due to the above remaining actions, the company has completed approximately, and I would say, the 100% of its ECP submission requirement, and approximately 60% has already been reviewed and accepted. It must be highlighted that many other conditions of the ECP are not applicable at this stage of the development of the project, but will become applicable in subsequent phases. Because on-site construction has not yet commenced, the DOE has not conducted site monitoring, but has developed a monitoring plan which will have a joint team that consists of the BPA, Mining Unit, Fisheries, Forest, Coastal Zone Management Authority, which will visit the site every 2 months during the 5 phases of the project. The DOE is currently reviewing the Rapid Ecological Assessment, which contains geotechnical information for soil-bearing capacity information of the road and the peninsula. The DOE is anticipating that a request to commence Phase 2 of the project will be submitted as soon as the review of the REA has been finalized. But you see, Madam Speaker, on the other side, some of these questions arise, and I recall a saying in Spanish which says that la culebra piensa que cada vez que muerde, muerde una rata hasta ese día que muerde una mangosta. In English it says, the snake thinks that every time it bites a rat until such a day that it bites a mongoose. Thank you.
I recognize the Honorable Leader of Opposition, Member for Mesopotamia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the Minister of Labour please tell this Honourable House what his ministry is doing to resolve the outstanding labour dispute between the stevedores and the Port of Belize Limited in order to avoid a catastrophic strike action?
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Rural Transformation, Community Development, Labor and Local.
Testing, yes. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in response to the question that was made by the Leader of the Opposition I would like to inform this Honorable House of the following. On June the 9th, 2023, the Minister of Rural Transformation, Community Development, Labor and Local Government received a letter dated 9 June 2023 from Christian Workers Union regarding a dispute. In their letter, the union indicated that the dispute stems from the Port of Belize Limited refusal to abide by the award for the tribunal handed down on 27 January 2022. The union also indicated that they invoked a 21-day notice to institute action against the Port of Belize Limited in accordance with Section 15 of the Settlements of Disputes in Essential Services Act, Chapter 298, the Laws of Belize. The Ministry has been involved in 2 meetings with both the union and the Port of Belize Limited on May the 5th, 2023 and May the 11th, 2023 respectively to assist parties in settling the matter. However, these were not successful. In July 2021, the CWU reported to the Minister a trade dispute including the matter of the redundancy package for stevedores. The Minister, in accordance with Sections 11 and 12 of the aforementioned Act, referred the said dispute to the tribunal for settlement. That matter was heard and determined by a tribunal. Having heard and determined the matter, the tribunal handed down its award on January 27, 2022. The reported dispute in the union's letter dated June 9, 2023 is on the same basis as the dispute reported in 2021, which has already been determined by the tribunal. On June 20, 2023, the Ministry responded to the union indicating receipt of the union's letter dated June 9, 2023 and advised that in accordance with Section 14 of the aforementioned Act, the matter stated in the union's letter has been referred by the Minister to the tribunal for a decision on any questions as to the interpretation of the award. On June 23, 2023, the tribunal was re-established before the expiration of the 21 days notice. In fact, I just want to update this Honorable House that the first meeting of the tribunal was actually convened Wednesday, the 28th of this month. So the matter is being addressed. As I said, the tribunal held its first meeting on June 28, 2023 to deal with the exigency of the situation. The Ministry would like to encourage all parties involved to continue to engage in constructive dialogue in order to resolve the matter in a peaceful manner. We are confident that the tribunal will provide a fair and impartial decision that will benefit all parties involved.
Statement by Minister.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Human Development, Families and Indigenous Peoples Affairs.
Pleasant good morning, Madam Speaker. Pleasant good morning to the beautiful people of Belize Rural Central, and pleasant good morning to each and every colleague in this honorable house this morning. I wish to make a brief statement this morning, Madam Speaker, on the expansion of the list of goods that will be subject to regulation under the Supplies Control Act. Please allow me to refer to my notes, Madam Speaker. I rise to provide an essential update on a matter that affects the lives of thousands of Belizeans every day. It is with pleasure that I speak on the decision made by Cabinet recently to expand the basic food basket of regulated food items from only 9 to a comprehensive 43 items. This initiative, Madam Speaker, aims to help to alleviate the burden of the high cost of living on our Belizean people. As we all are aware, The cost of living around the world has been a pressing concern, and Belize is no exception. The $5 minimum wage has helped over 30,000 of our Belizean people. But the rising cost of living is at our doorstep every day. Many families struggle to make ends meet, particularly when it comes to putting food on the table. And the rising prices of essential food items has eroded the purchasing power of households and has put a strain on their overall well-being. It is our duty, I believe, as representatives of the people to address the issue and find practical solutions that will make a positive impact on their daily lives. And this, Madam Speaker, is what our government is seeking to do. I want to pause to give a small story, Madam Speaker, that the other day one of my friends was in the supermarket, and a little old lady in front of her was buying 2 ramen and 1 pound of flour. 2 ramen and 1 pound of flour. Now we know that the ramen is not very healthy at all, Madam Speaker. But that is what that poor lady had in her pocket, maybe less than a $5. 2 ramen and 1 pound of flour. Now, Madam Speaker, we have to try to help our poorest people. Before this expansion of regulated goods was made, there was no markup cap on the items that I will mention one by one this morning, Madam Speaker. And I want to pause to really acknowledge the Ministry of Agriculture, Food Security and Enterprise, led by our good colleague, Honorable Jose Abelardo May, and his team. I want to acknowledge and thank you very much, Honorable May. And I want to say that my ministry, we were very happy to have participated in coming up with this list of items. We collaborated in this significant exercise to expand the basic food basket. And I believe, Madam Speaker, that this is a major step towards achieving our Plan Belize. By broadening the range of regulated goods and reducing the markup range, we are ensuring that a wider array of essential food items will be subject to monitoring and control. This, we anticipate, will help to stabilize prices, making these items more affordable and accessible to all Belizeans. I do wish at this point, Madam Speaker, not from my prepared remarks, but to pause once again to encourage our Belizean people to eat more fruits and vegetables. They have some nice mangoes out there right now. Eat more fruits and vegetables. Have a little garden, my good Belizean people, and let's consume what we can grow and thus eat more healthy. Let's eat more healthy, Madam Speaker. But for that poor little lady who could have bought 2 ramen and 1 pound of flour, I guess for her, maybe eating healthy would have been expensive. So we have to keep in mind our poor people, but at the same time, not forgetting that the Ministry of Health, and we pause again to acknowledge our good Minister of Health, Honorable Kevin Bernard. The Ministry of Health has presented a nutrition, a nutrition policy, a good nutrition policy. And so we want to encourage our Belizean people. Let us reduce the sugary drinks in the schools, and let us encourage our people that we want to reduce the diabetes, we want to reduce the high blood pressure. Those are the things that we need to do as we continue to grow our country. The expansion, Madam Speaker, of basic food, of the basic food basket considers the importance of what many Belizeans buy and consume regularly. And plus, there is a selection in the list, which I will read, of vegetables, whole grains, and some lean proteins. Madam Speaker, I must mention that the introduction of this new food basket is just the beginning of our efforts. The Ministry of Agriculture, via its Supplies Control Unit, will take necessary measures to ensure more effective monitoring and enforcement of these regulations. And again, we appeal to all Belizeans. Look carefully at what they're charging in the stores and shops, the corner shop and the supermarkets. Look carefully and do not be afraid to report so that the Supplies Control Unit and the officers can make sure that there is not price gouging and too much markup. It is imperative that we establish robust mechanisms to track market prices and detect any instances of price manipulation or unfair practices. And by doing so, we can guarantee that the benefits of this expansion reach those who need it the most and prevent the attempts to undermine the intended goals of this initiative. Madam Speaker, allow me to share all the 30 food items to be regulated with a maximum retail markup of 15%. And these are food items. So the maximum markup that would be allowed, and again, we have to monitor it closely, the maximum retail markup would be 15% on butter, evaporated milk, eggs, baby cereal, infant formula, creamers, cocoa powder, corn flour, other beans in addition to red kidney beans, oats, oatmeal is very healthy, cereal and corn flakes, chicken sausage, corned beef, tuna, baking powder, yeast, cooking oil, shortening, chicken cuts, ground beef, carrots, onion, cabbage, sweet pepper, potato, tomato, macaroni and cheese, peanut butter, condensed milk, and the 5-gallon bottled water. So we would allow a 15% markup, but not more, on all those 30 food items. Now, on the non-food items, what we would say is that we will allow not more than a 20% retail markup. And these items are, all 13 of them are the feminine products and tampons, feminine hygiene products, rubbing alcohol, the bar soap, toilet paper, soap powder, fabric softener, liquid detergent, deodorant, baby oil, petroleum jelly, diapers, baby wipes, and toothpaste. So, Madam Speaker, I say that, and I give those lists to the House of Representatives this morning in order to read it into the record, but we will be making sure that the monitoring is going to take place. So thank you for that. Madam Speaker, I'm about to wrap up. I want to once again, and it bears repeating, I want to really thank our colleague, Honorable Jose Abelardo May, for his leadership in this area. I want to thank the Supplies Control Officer, Mr. Lennox Nicholson, and all the rest of your team. I ask, Madam Speaker, for the cooperation of our importers, and if you not cooperate, we will have to monitor and come down hard. But I believe that voluntarily we can help to keep the cost of living down. So we want to thank the importers, the wholesalers, the retailers, the corner shops. And of course, as you know, a month or two ago, we had met with many of the wholesalers and retailers of the Chinese community, and they showed a goodwill. But there again, We thank them for the cooperation so far, but we want to serve notice that we are serious, and we have to be serious about the monitoring and making sure that there is enforcement. We must be serious about that. In conclusion then, Madam Speaker, the expansion of the basic food basket from 9 to 43 items is a significant decision by this government. It demonstrates our commitment to addressing the high cost of living for our citizens, especially those like the little lady with the 2 ramen and the 1 pound of flour. So especially those who are most needy. And by regulating the prices of essential food and non-food items, we are working to alleviate the burden on our people and improving their overall quality of life. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Introduction of bills.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. But Madam Speaker, I have something that's been really bothering me. Today is the 20th House meeting that we have since we were elected, Madam Speaker. Please, 20th House meetings, and the honourable member from Queen Square has refused to come to House meetings. I find that disrespectful to this House, disrespectful to the people of Queen Square, Madam Speaker. I find it disrespectful that the leader of the opposition, her nephew...
Madam Speaker.
Yes, I am asking
Madam
her...
Speaker, on a
she
point
has
of
the right...
order, if the Prime Minister has a problem, he can raise that in a substantive motion in the House, Madam Speaker. He's not supposed to use his opportunity to introduce a bill to do that, Madam Speaker.
Wait, Mr. Leader of Opposition,
The Speaker can't allow me to bring up something such issue. Madam Speaker, the point is...
Continue, Prime Minister. No, we won't have that. Continue, Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, that is the very point. That the leader of the opposition is the nephew of the honourable member from Queen Square. So it's an embarrassment on him that he can't get his aunt to come to
I'm trying... Mr. Prime Minister, my apologies for the interruption. Mr. Leader of Opposition, please.
I am... If you could...
Mr. Leader of Opposition, I've said it. This is the 3rd time. Please.
Madam Speaker, I think it's just very important to make the point that she continues to collect her salary and refuses to represent the people of Queen Square. If she was not interested, then why did she put her name on a ballot? She could resign right now, have a re-election right now. But I'm coming to the end, to the point that you are making. Madam Speaker, I am asking the chairman that's responsible for the standing orders, Madam Speaker, to make an amendment to the standing orders so we can deal with any member that refuses to come to House meetings. 28 House meetings, this honourable member from Queen Square refuses to come and show his face. 28 House meeting. Not only a disrespect to us in this House and a disrespect to his nephew, the leader of the opposition, but even a greater disrespect to the good people of Queen Square, and the good people of Queen Square deserve good representation. So, Madam Speaker, as I said, with your permission, Madam Speaker, I would like to handle both the trust amendment bill and the limited liability bill as one, so I could just do one explanation on both bills.
They're connected.
Yes, they're connected. Yes, they are. Madam Speaker, these 2 bills are a continuation of the government's efforts to ensure that Belize is well prepared for the various external assessments that Belize is undergoing, and to bring our legislative framework in line with the international best practices and obligations. We do this so that Belize is not subject to any adverse listing by CFATF, by FATF, OECD, or the EU. But first, let me address the Trust Amendment Bill. A major element faced in this assessment has been the issue of addressing the transparency and the beneficial ownership of legal persons and arrangements. A trust, Madam Speaker, is a legal arrangement wherein the settlor establishes this trust to legally transfer control of property or assets to a trustee who holds and administers the property or asset for the benefit of the beneficiaries of the trust. In assessing the current Trust Act, concerns arose as it pertains to the availability and accessibility of trust information in Belize. For example, the FATF Recommendation 25 requires that specific information be kept and obtained in respect to beneficial owner, account information, underlying documents, and the sharing of information. When assessed against this criteria, the Trust Act was found lacking, so to speak. This Trust Amendment Bill will ensure that Belize is compliant with the requirements of these recommendations. In so doing, we will be removing the risk of a non-compliant finding, which could increase the likelihood of an adverse listing by CFAT-F. Or in Creole, or in simple terms, Madam Speaker, basically we are doing these amendments, we will be eliminating the risk, make them blacklist way, something we can't afford. This bill also aims to strengthen the Act by providing for more practical and clear directions with respect to duties of the trustee and the trust agents. In summary then, the major proposed changes are amendments 2, 3, and 4. These amendments expand and impose duties on the trustees and trust agents. The duty imposed on the trustee is to keep accurate and adequate records, including underlying documentation and information on professional service providers, and critically, information on any ultimate beneficial owner. The information must be kept updated in Belize and for a period of 5 years from the date which they are prepared, or 5 years from the date on which the trustee's involvement in the trust comes to an end. The competent authority can now request information from the trustee or trust agent in respect of the ultimate beneficial owners. I think in this case, the owner of the previous, the Bolino contract, whether they hired some company that came in, we could have asked for that information. So, but say, put it on record, put it on the house phone. You never get shares? That's why you want me to charge the man, because you never get no shares. That's the pension for the boys, yes. So, Madam Speaker, the competent authority, as I said, will be able to request information from the trustee or the trustee agent, and they will have to provide who is the ultimate beneficial owner. There is a duty to disclose the status as a trustee to reporting entities, like, for instance, the FIU or any other, such as probably the central bank. There's also a duty to submit an annual attestation report, which includes the name and address of any ultimate beneficial owner. Now, let me speak now to the amendment to the Limited Liability Partnership Act, the LLP Act. The LLP Act was enacted in July of 1999, and it provides that a limited liability partnership is a legal person other than a body corporate, distinct from its partners. This means that contract that binds a limited liability partnerships are made only with the legal person, and any changes in the legal person brought about by the by the admission, retirement, death of a partner, or if a partner is a legal person, where it ceases to exist, does not affect the existence, the rights or liabilities of the limited liability partnership. Madam Speaker, the same underlying factors mentioned earlier with the Trust Act in respect to the ongoing assessments and effectiveness also apply to this amendment bill. So with that understanding already in place, government seeks to address the deficiencies that will be remedied by the enactment of this bill. Again, this bill aims to facilitate compliance with the FATF recommendation 24, and amendments 4, 5, and 6 are the core changes being made to facilitate compliance with FATF recommendation 24. The bill provides for a list of names and addresses of beneficial owners. The bill seeks to impose 3 duties on a limited liability partnership, which are intended to remedy the gaps identified by legal analysts to ensure satisfaction of the standard. The first duty is that a limited liability partnership must keep and update records. Second duty for the LLP is for a designated partner, a registered agent, or any agent of the LLP, or a liquidator for that matter, to provide or produce records and information when the written request is made by the Commission. These records or any information request must be provided within 7 days of that date to the Commission if the Commission so directs, or earlier if so requested. The third duty of the registered agent, if there is a registered agent, is to request and obtain records and underlying documents from the LLP or designated partner. The bill will now provide for records and information to be kept for at least 5 years from the date on which the LLP is struck, dissolved, or wound up. We're all doing this, Madam Speaker, to bring our supervisory efforts in line with international standards and obligations. By doing this, we are ensuring our integrity and compliance. These amendments will allow for good corporate governance. It will put Belize as a jurisdiction from which firms of substance and good reputation can conduct and promote business. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, those bills, the Limited Liability Partnership Amendment Bill 2023 and the Trust Amendment Bill 2023, are referred to the Finance and Economic Development Committee for examination, consideration, and report.
Bill for an Act to amend the Limited Liability Partnership Act, Chapter 258 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to further facilitate compliance with the Financial Action Task Force Recommendation 24 and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Trust. A bill for an Act to amend the Trust Act, Chapter 202 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to expand the duties of trustees and trust agents and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Economic.
Madam Speaker, in accordance with Standing Order number 49-1, I move that both bills be taken through all the stages forthwith.
Honorable members, the question is that the next stages of both bills be taken forthwith. All those in favor, kindly say aye. Aye. Those against, kindly say no. I think the ayes have it. I recognize the Honorable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is the Criminal Code Amendment Bill 2023. Madam Speaker, I rise to introduce a bill for an act to amend the Criminal Code Act Chapter 101 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to repeal provisions relating to the deliberate or reckless spreading of HIV/AIDS and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Madam Speaker, with your permission, I would just like to make a brief comment on this amendment. Our approach, Madam Speaker, to public health and wellness, especially in the context of HIV/AIDS, must be grounded in science, empathy, and human rights. This is the spirit that underpins the Criminal Code Amendment Act 2023, and it is in this spirit that we bring this amendment to you today, to this House. The proposed repeal of Section 46A and 73A is not an attempt to trivialize the severity of HIV/AIDS, but rather it is a recognition that punitive laws are not the most effective way to combat this epidemic. They can, in fact, pose significant barriers to HIV prevention, treatment, and care. By criminalizing the transmission of HIV/AIDS, we run the risk of driving the disease underground, discouraging those at risk from seeking testing, counseling, and treatment for fear of legal reprisal. Therefore, Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Health and Wellness firmly believes that the battle against HIV/AIDS should not be fought in courtroom, but in our communities, our hospitals, and our clinics. We should focus our efforts on education, prevention care, and support rather than punishment. We should aim to reduce the stigma and discrimination that surrounds this disease, to encourage more people to get tested, to know their status, and to seek treatment. And so, definitely, Madam Speaker, the repeal of this section 46A and 73A is a step towards a more compassionate, more effective approach to addressing HIV/AIDS. I will also want to take this opportunity to highlight that we are on our way pretty soon, just as we have been certified a malaria-free country for indigenous cases. We are pretty much soon to be declared as well certified free from HIV syphilis transmission from mother to child. So, Madam Speaker, I urge all members to support this amendment, and I want to take this opportunity once more to thank all our healthcare professionals. I want to thank the Minister of Human Development and Indigenous People Affairs for her support and our Ministry's support in bringing this amendment to this Honorable House. I thank you.
Honorable members, that bill is referred to the Constitution and Foreign Affairs Committee for examination, consideration, and report.
Bill for an Act to amend the Criminal Code Act, Chapter 101 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to repeal provisions relating to the deliberate or reckless spreading of HIV/AIDS and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Madam Speaker, in accordance with Standing Order number 49-1, I move that the bill be taken through all its stages forthwith.
Honorable members, the question is that the next stages of the bill be taken forthwith. All those in favor kindly say aye. Aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Motions relating to the business or sitting of the House.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment.
Madam Speaker, I move that at its rising today, the House adjourn to a date to be fixed by the Speaker.
Honorable members, the question is that the House at its rising today adjourn to a date to be fixed by the Speaker. All those in favor kindly say aye. Aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Public business, government business, motion.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Education, Culture, Science and Technology.
Madam Speaker, this is the Inter-American Development Bank Skills for the Future program, US $15 million loan motion 2023. With your permission not to repeat the recitals, I move now, therefore be it resolved that this Honorable House, being satisfied that the loan proceeds would significantly assist the government of Belize in its efforts to expand the pedagogical model of the Belize City STEAM Lab School to more education institutions, and to respond to the gaps in learning that widened during the pandemic, approves and confirms that the government may enter into a loan contract with the Inter-American Development Bank on the terms and conditions set out above, and further authorizes the Minister of Finance to execute and deliver the said loan contract and all other documents associated therewith.
Honourable members, the question is now, therefore, be it resolved that this Honourable House, being satisfied that the loan proceeds would significantly assist the Government of Belize in its efforts to expand the pedagogical model of the Belize City STEAM Laboratory School to more education institutions, and to respond to the gaps in learning that widened during the pandemic, approves and confirms that the government may enter into a loan contract with the Inter-American Development Bank on the terms and conditions set out above, and further authorizes the Minister of Finance to execute and deliver the said loan contract and all other documents associated therewith. All those in favor kindly say aye. Aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Announcement by the Speaker.
Honourable members, it has been agreed that the bills listed below pass this day: Limited Liability Partnership Amendment Bill 2023, Trusts Amendment Bill 2023, and Criminal Code Amendment Bill 2023. As you are aware, on the Standing Order number 74, all proposed legislation, messages, petitions, motions, and other matters relating to the subject mentioned under the title of each standing committee shall be referred by the House to such committee for examination, consideration, and report to the House. For this to be done, other than by suspension of standing orders, is for me to suspend the sitting to enable the Finance and Economic Development Committee and the Constitution and Foreign Affairs Committee to examine, consider, and report to the House on the bills. All those in favor kindly say aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it. Clerk? Yeah.
Madam Speaker, in accordance with Standing Order 12.8, I move that the proceedings on the order paper may be entered upon and proceeded with at this day's sitting at any hour though opposed.
Honourable members, the question is that the proceedings on the order paper may be entered upon and proceeded with at this day's sitting at any hour though opposed. All those in favor kindly say aye. Aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it. The sitting is now suspended until the Finance and Economic Development Committee and the Constitution and Foreign Affairs Committee have concluded their business.
Presentation of report from select committees.
I recognize the Honorable Chairperson of the Finance and Economic Development Committee.
Madam Speaker, I rise to present and lay on the table reports number HR 208/1/13, report from the Finance and Economic Development Committee on the Limited Liability Partnership Amendment Bill 2023. Number HR 209/1/13, report from the Finance and Economic Development Committee on the Trusts Amendment Bill 2023. Thank you.
Honorable members, those reports are ordered to lie on the table. I recognize the Honorable Chairperson of the Constitution and Foreign Affairs Committee.
Morning, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to present and lay on the table report number HR 210/1/13, report from the Constitution and Foreign Affairs Committee on the Criminal Code Amendment Bill 2023. Thank you.
Honorable members, that report is ordered to lie on the table.
Bills for second reading.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment.
Madam Speaker, is International Banking Amendment Number 2, Bill 2023. Madam Speaker, I move the second reading of a bill for an act to amend the International Banking Act, Chapter 267 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to amend the measures for single borrowers' limits among banks and financial institutions, and to provide for matters connected therewith and incidental to. Madam Speaker, in the first reading, I made extensive explanations. All of these have to do with our CFATF, the compliance that is expected from us to avoid our financial institutions from being blacklisted. I urge support of all members. Thank you.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to amend the International Banking Act, Chapter 267 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to amend the measures for single borrower limits among banks and financial institutions and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto, be read a second time. All those in favor kindly say aye. Aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
The bill for an act to amend the International Banking Act, Chapter 267 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to amend the measures for a single borrower limit among banks and financial institutions and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment.
Madam Speaker, this is the Domestic Banks and Financial Institutions Amendment Number 2, Bill 2023. Madam Speaker, I move the second reading for a bill for an act to amend the Domestic Banks and Financial Institutions Act, Chapter 263 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to amend the measures for single borrower limits among banks and financial institutions, to improve measures for mergers and acquisitions among other banks and financial institutions, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental to. Move the debate, Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to amend the Domestic Banks and Financial Institutions Act, Chapter 263 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to amend the measures for single borrower limits among banks and financial institutions, to improve measures for mergers and acquisition among other banks and financial institutions, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto, be read a second time. All those in favor kindly say aye. Aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
The bill for an act to amend the Domestic Banks and Financial Institution Act, Chapter 263 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to amend the measures for a single borrower limit among banks and financial institutions, to improve measures for merger and acquisition among other banks and financial institutions, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment.
Madam Speaker, this is a limited liability partnership amendment bill 2023. Madam Speaker, I move the second reading of a bill for an act to amend the Limited Liability Partnership Act, Chapter 253 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to further facilitate compliance with the Financial Action Task Force, the FATF Recommendation 24, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental to.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to amend the Limited Liability Partnership Act, Chapter 258 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to further facilitate compliance with the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, Recommendation 24, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto, be read a second time. All those in favor kindly say aye. Aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
The bill for an act to amend the Limited Liability Partnership Act, Chapter 258 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to further facilitate compliance with the Financial Action Task Force, Recommendation 24, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
Recognize the Honorable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment.
Madam Speaker, this is the Trust Amendment Bill 2023. Madam Speaker, I move the second reading for a bill for an act to amend the Trust Act, Chapter 2020 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020. Chapter 202, to expand the duties of trustees and trust agents and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to amend the Trusts Act, Chapter 202 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to expand the duties of trustees and trust agents and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto, be read a second time. All those in favor kindly say aye. Aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
The bill for an act to amend the Trust Act, Chapter 202 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to expand the duties of trustees and trust agents and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Madam Speaker, this is the Criminal Code Amendment Bill 2023. Madam Speaker, I move the second reading of a bill for an act to amend the Criminal Code Act, Chapter 101 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to repeal provisions relating to the deliberate or reckless spreading of HIV/AIDS and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Madam Speaker, in my presenting the bill, I had already explained. Thanks.
I recognize the member for Albert.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The question, we didn't get much statistics in the presentation of this bill, Madam Speaker, of where we really are with HIV and AIDS in this country. But the question is, Madam Speaker, while we understand the rationale that has been put forward by the Minister of Health, is what happens in a case where there is rape and a person who is HIV positive willfully rapes his or her partner knowing that they are infected with this potentially life-threatening disease. We know that there are laws on the books to deal with rape charges, but in the case of HIV and AIDS, there's this issue of attempted murder, because there are persons who are still dying as a result of this disease. On this side of the House, Madam Speaker, that's certainly the concern we have regarding the removal of the criminal code. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the member for Belize Rural Central.
It's not afternoon yet. Good morning, Madam Speaker, once again. Madam Speaker, I rise on the second reading of this bill. And it really is a momentous day for me on this particular repeal proposal. I must admit to this honorable House that some 22 years ago, I was the minister at the time who really pushed and promoted that we should have this criminalization of the knowing or reckless transmission of HIV. We felt at the time, Madam Speaker, that it was the correct and responsible thing to do. And it may have had its day, like I say, 22, 23 years ago, in terms of thinking that we were on the right track. But as the fight against HIV became more significant and there was more thrust, there was more of a human rights approach, and also there was the provision of antiretroviral medications, which really has made HIV a disease that one can live with if one is properly on medication. As I mentioned to colleagues the other day, as a matter of fact, Madam Speaker, the medications are so effective now, all these years after the first case of HIV was in Belize back in maybe the 80s or 90s. The medication is so effective now that one can have what is called a viral load that is so low that they cannot even transmit the virus because it is there latent, but the viral load, because of the medication being very low, it is not even transmissible. But I want to say, Madam Speaker, that at the time we passed this amendment to the criminal code, HIV was a frightening thing. People were fearful of it. It was serious, and we did not yet have the antiretroviral medications. And so, again, I repeat, we felt that we were acting responsibly. But as the years went on, we ran into the issue of acting in a way that was flying in the face of a human rights approach. Because if we further stigmatize HIV, what we are doing is we are driving it underground for the vulnerable groups who really need the attention and who really need to access the health care so that they can live with HIV and it not be transmissible and it not be a fatal disease. So, Madam Speaker, I want to say that, again, it's an emotional day for me, really, that we are doing this now, something that is overdue, but something that is the right thing to do. Perhaps a bit late, but I think for us, we can look at it as at the right time. The approach, Madam Speaker, to HIV and AIDS now is that everybody must protect themselves. Now, the concern of the member for Albert about recklessness and intentional criminal activity. The answer, Honorable Member for Albert and all of the House, really is that there are other sections of the criminal code that can suffice, and it wasn't necessary, and it is now not necessary to have a further stigmatization of HIV, because we didn't pass a law making it a criminal offense to, say, transmit HPV, human papillomavirus, or gonorrhea for that matter. But again, way back when, we felt it was responsible because HIV was such a big thing at the time. And I want to assure this Honorable House, Madam Speaker, that other sections of the criminal code can suffice where there is reckless and intentional behavior. So it is not now necessary to have HIV further stigmatized. So I want to assure everyone out there who may have the concern, and it is a valid concern, I want to assure everyone that the government and the criminal justice system will continue to act responsibly in terms of aggravation of somebody who may commit a rape or a reckless activity in that regard. But I also want to say to this Honorable House that the unintended effect of passing that legislation, which was passed in 2001 but gazetted in 2002, the unintended effect was that you are really criminalizing the mother-to-child transmission of HIV, something that we did not absolutely want to do whatsoever. So, Madam Speaker, it is necessary for us to pass this bit of legislation today, repealing those two sections of the criminal code. We want to protect ourselves. We promote safer sex practices such as the use of condoms, and we don't want further to stigmatize and to drive vulnerable groups underground in terms of seeking treatment. We haven't done that well, in my view, over all of these years. I was the chair of the National AIDS Commission way back when, and I do have to admit, Madam Speaker, that Belize, we could have done better, and really we should have done better. Now, we still have too many cases of HIV in the country, even though the medications have been effective, the promotion of safe practices and the awareness is still there. I think we could have done a little bit better. Now, I'm not apologizing on anybody's behalf. I am just saying that HIV is still with us and we still have the fight on our hands. In my personal view, we ought to have been able to do better over all of these years, but the struggle continues. It's like other diseases. We're so happy that we can say that Belize is malaria-free, and we wish to assure the World Health Organization that we can seek now the validation of the elimination of mother-to-child transmission. So it is important, it is very important to make sure that we carry out this repeal today. So the WHO will then, and it was brought to our attention, I think, late last year, the WHO will then say, okay, by repealing this, the World Health Organization can now say that they are willing to do the validation of the exercise that we are eliminating the mother-to-child transmission of HIV. Madam Speaker, like I say, it might seem to some persons as a small thing, but really, it is a big deal today. And I want to thank the Minister of Health himself and all of his staff, all the doctors, especially Dr. Natalia Larga Espada Bear, who has led the charge on this issue. And also, I humbly, but with some pleasure, Madam Speaker, rise on the second reading of this bill to say that, in my own view, it is correcting something that was done back then, which we have found now to not have been the correct move, and now we are correcting that. We are correcting that today by passing this repeal in the House. So I really wish to say that I hope that we have answered the concern about reckless or intentional transmission. I hope that we are able to say that we are moving on into a new era now in fighting infectious diseases. And I wish once again, just to say that I believe that for me certainly it's a big day, but also from the point of view of the Ministry of Health and the direction that we are moving in to protect our people and to bring good health for our people, this was indeed, and it will be indeed, the correct thing to do. Again, a little late, but better late than never. So, Madam Speaker, I fully support this repeal today, and I ask all members of the House to join me in my request that we pass this legislation. Thank you so much.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to amend the Criminal Code Act, Chapter 101 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to repeal provisions relating to the deliberate or reckless spreading of HIV/AIDS and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto, be read a second time. All those in favor kindly say aye. Aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
The bill for an act to amend the Criminal Code Act, Chapter 101 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to repeal the provisions relating to deliberate or reckless spreading of HIV/AIDS and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto. Committee of the whole House on Bill.
Honorable members, the House will now resolve into a committee of the whole House to consider the bills that were read a second time. I would like to ask visitors in the galleries to leave during this portion of the sitting.
for third reading.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment.
Madam Speaker, I rise to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the International Banking Amendment Number 2 Bill 2023 and passed it without amendment. I now move the third reading of that bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to amend the International Banking Act, Chapter 267 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to amend the measures for single borrower limits among banks and financial institutions and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto, be read a third time. All those in favor kindly say aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
The bill for an act to amend the International Banking Act, Chapter 267 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to amend the measures for single borrowing limit among banks and financial institutions and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment.
Madam Speaker, I rise to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the Domestic Banks and Financial Institutions Amendment Number 2 Bill 2023 and passed it with amendments.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to amend the Domestic Banks and Financial Institutions Act, Chapter 263 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to amend the measures for single borrower limits among banks and financial institutions, to improve measures for mergers and acquisitions among other banks and financial institutions, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto, as amended, be read a third time. All those in favor kindly say aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Bill for an act to amend the Domestic Banks and Financial Institution Act, Chapter 263 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to amend the measures for single borrowing limits among banks and financial institutions, to improve measures of merger and acquisition among other banks and financial institutions, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
Recognize the Honorable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment.
Madam Speaker, I rise to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the Limited Liability Partnership Amendment Bill 2023 and passed it without amendment. I now move the third reading of that bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to amend the Limited Liability Partnership Act, Chapter 258 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to further facilitate compliance with the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, Recommendation 24, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto, be read a third time. All those in favor kindly say aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
The bill for an act to amend the Limited Liability Partnership Act, Chapter 258 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to further facilitate compliance with the Financial Action Task Force Recommendation 24, and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, Economic Development and
Madam Speaker, I rise to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the Trust Amendment Bill 2023 and passed it without amendments. I now move the third reading of this bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to amend the Trusts Act, Chapter 202 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to expand the duties of trustees and trust agents and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto, be read a third time. All those in favor kindly say aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
Bill for an Act to amend the Trust Act, Chapter 202 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to expand the duties of trustees and trust agents and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Minister of Health and Wellness.
Madam Speaker, I rise to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the Criminal Code Amendment Bill 2023 and passed it without amendment. I now move the third reading of that bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill for an act to amend the Criminal Code Act, Chapter 101 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to repeal provisions relating to the deliberate or reckless spreading of HIV/AIDS and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto be read a third time. All those in favor kindly say aye. Those against kindly say no. I think the ayes have it.
The bill for an act to amend the Criminal Code Act, Chapter 101 of the Substantive Laws of Belize, Revised Edition 2020, to repeal the provisions relating to the deliberate or reckless spreading of HIV/AIDS and to provide for matters connected therewith or incidental thereto.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment.
Madam Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn. But if you allow me, with your indulgence, Madam Speaker, I wish to take this opportunity to thank the good people from Orange Walk Central who 30 years ago on this date elected me for the first time as a representative. You go clap, you go clap. It's okay. But serious, Madam Speaker, it has been a privilege to represent the good people of Orange Walk Central. I never expected to be of service to the people of Orange Walk Central and by extension, the people of Belize for 30 years. And it's been a long journey. We have ups and downs, but it has been mostly ups. And it's an experience that I wouldn't change for anything. And whilst, many people say, oh, you're just so great, you're a representative for me, I think I have gotten more out of it than what the people of Orange Walk Central has given to me and also the rest of this country. And the past 2.5 years to have been able to, because of the support from the people of Orange Walk Central, to continue to give me that support, to have been working with a wonderful team, a great team in the cabinet and on this side of the house for the past 2 years, 2 years and a half, that in 2.5 short years, we've managed to do the impossible. When members from the other side were saying that they weep for us, we did not weep. We decided that we're going to work. And we have reduced the debt to GDP from 133% to 64% in 2 years. We've managed to reduce unemployment, Madam Speaker, from over 30% and underemployment at over 30% to today under 5% for the first time in the history of Belize. We've managed to build houses, we've managed to give lands, we've managed to give scholarships. Today we see a different Belize than what we saw in November of 2020. A Belize of excitement, a Belize of hope, a Belize of optimism, a Belize where each and everyone believe that we are indeed living in a much better country than in November 2020. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Leader of Opposition, Member for Mesopotamia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thou dost protested too much is what comes to mind. Before I speak on the adjournment on the issue of national importance, I was intending to congratulate the Prime Minister, did an excellent job congratulating himself, but the opposition, and I congratulate you on 30 years of service to the people in Orange Walk Central, although my good friend Denny Grijalva definitely would not agree that you're doing a better job than he would do. I congratulate you nonetheless But you were doing good. But at the end, the Alzheimer's kick in and the old man syndrome kick in. It shows that it's time to go. After 30 years, it's really time to go. But congratulations, nonetheless, on an outstanding career. You've gone from, in 1993, June 30th, to becoming the Prime Minister. And I do hope that one day the fantasy that you just outlined would come to be before we send you home for good. Madam Speaker, I would like to speak about redistricting. That is my issue of national importance. Madam Speaker, I have a constitutional and moral responsibility to bring to the public's attention the blatant gerrymandering that litters.
One second. I need to get clarity.
Yes.
Redistricting, and I'm asking for the clarity because of the standing order. You should take a seat.
Oh.
Thank you. Is the redistricting matter before the courts?
Yes.
If the matter is before the courts, I will have to ask that we cannot entertain that. I can refer to the specific, but I am asking members, I've been advised by the clerk that it is still a matter before the courts and it should not be entertained. The clerk guides the office of the chair and I have been so guided.
Madam Speaker, the redistricting is something that has to happen every 10 years.
Yeah.
So I can speak on the importance of redistricting and concerns that we have in regards to redistricting.
Members, I have been so guided and I will take that guidance. Is there another matter of public importance?
I will inform you that I will bring a substantive motion to the House to disagree with your decision.
That's right, member.
I adjourn.
I did get, I recognize the member for Albert.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to make my intervention on a matter of national concern. And that is, really, what is the real state of the national economy of Belize? Madam Speaker, it seems that the Prime Minister and my colleagues on that side of the House live a much different reality, Madam Speaker, than the Belizean people and those on this side of the House. You see, Madam Speaker, when the Prime Minister got caught red-handed in the portico cookie jar, when he sought to advance.
On a point of order, Madam Speaker, if you allow me.
What's the point
The point of order, Madam Speaker, is that you can't speak about an issue that has just been spoken just in the last month's meeting.
Member for Albert, that matter did come up extensively in the last meeting. I will ask, what is the specific point of public importance? No, what is what is...
The real state of the national economy, Madam Speaker. That's my point.
So the matter of portico cannot be introduced as that was already dealt with.
It's significant, Madam Speaker. It potentially can have a significant impact. It can have you asked a question, I'm giving a response, Madam Speaker. Would you Would you allow me?
Yes,
Oh, okay, thank you. The matter of the portico definitive agreement and the terms and conditions therein can have a significant impact on the economic outlook of this country, Madam Speaker.
Member for Albert, I hear you. All I am saying is that, as is provided for in the standing orders, matter has been extensively discussed in the previous meeting, and the standing orders is clear. I'm asking if there is another matter of public importance.
Madam Speaker, you haven't even allowed me to get beyond my first sentence,
Member, you raised the I'm saying to you, you stood on the national state, I believe you said, of the economy. Then you introduced this matter of Portico Enterprises. You went further to state about definitive agreement. I am saying that those two things have been extensively discussed. It's on the record in the previous meeting. Your matter of importance is on the national state of economy. All I'm saying to you is that those two matters cannot be raised again. Member for Albert.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll be so guided. Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister, having felt quite a deal of pressure, decided to take to the airwaves and online media to speak of his administration's midterm performance review that, in my view, Madam Speaker, is failing miserably on the promises and commitments made to the Belizean people, while losing favor with the voting public at a record-breaking pace. Madam Speaker, in his address to the nation, the Prime Minister boasted proudly that in short order, the SIB, the Statistical Institute of Belize, will announce that the Belizean economy grew by 11.5% in the first quarter of this year, of this financial year. He also spoke about the reduction of the debt to GDP ratio, Madam Speaker. We just heard him beating his chest from 133% to 65%. But what he consistently fails to tell the Belizean people, and it is clearly outlined in the IMF report, Madam Speaker, is that there was a rebasing of the debt to the GDP ratio. And so we are not, when you said that it was 133% in 2020 and it's now 65% in 2023, we are not comparing apples to apples. Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister and his technocrats have mastered the function of spinning the numbers. But what they have failed to do is to report on the impact, not the ratios, on the impact of the first quarter growth of the national economy. You see, Madam Speaker and colleagues, what Belizeans understand is simply this: higher the cost of living, the lower the standards and quality of life. Madam Speaker, the people of Belize are still struggling every day in meeting the high cost of fuel. In some cases, Madam Speaker, as in the case of diesel, we have seen some marginal declines. But marginal is as best as we can describe it. In January, Madam Speaker, January 18th, premium was at $13.96 a gallon. Regular was at $11.96 a gallon. And diesel was $13.10 a gallon. Madam Speaker, May 26, according to the government gazette, premium is still at $13.86 a gallon. Regular, in fact, has increased to $12 a gallon, and diesel has been reduced by $11.55 per gallon. So, what do? There's little, as I said, or no, in some cases, no reprieve at the pump. We drive when we can, And when we don't have any alternative, as the Prime Minister encouraged us to do, we walk. And some of us, Madam Speaker, and I'm not calling any names, run away when we can't articulate the solutions to the difficulties we are facing. As the IMF recommended, Madam Speaker, there should be some targeted assistance to the vulnerable households that are being further pushed to the margins of poverty. The COVID crisis may be behind us, Madam Speaker, but the cost of living, the escalating cost of living, is still in full swing. Madam Speaker, parents are still struggling to pay outstanding school fees for the academic year. Every week, we are approached by parents who are desperate to settle outstanding bills, especially at the primary and secondary school levels, so that their children can graduate with their class and move on to the next level of academic learning. It's not that the parents don't want to pay. It's simply that they can't stretch their dollar far enough to meet those commitments. Madam Speaker, this is a far cry from the free education commitment this administration made at the onset of their term in office. Madam Speaker, we even have in hand outstanding invoices from those pilot institutions purportedly that are benefiting from the Ministry of Education's free education program. Madam Speaker, we heard today from the member of Belize Rural Central this initiative to increase the basic food basket. And it's high time, Madam Speaker, that something is done to help households who are struggling to put food on the table. Every week, Madam Speaker, and I'm sure you go to the grocery store. I go. When I go to the grocery store, the cost of goods keep going up. I'm not sure about this robust monitoring mechanism that we have in place to look at the price gouging and unfair practices that the member from Belize Rural Central mentioned. Yet, Madam Speaker, there is no assistance for those vulnerable families who need the basic thing as food. We heard the member from Belize Rural Central, Madam Speaker, speak of this old lady who all she could afford with the $5 she had in her pocket was 2 ramen and a pound of flour. These are the members of our community that need direct support, Madam Speaker, from the government of Belize. And then there's the Ministry of Health. And however you spin it, Madam Speaker.
On a point of order, the honourable member from Albert said she's
What's the point of order?
The point of order is that you can only speak on one matter. She's speaking about the issue of the economy, and that's fine, but no, she's going on to the Ministry of Health. So I think we need to call to attention that she needs to speak on the issue of the economy, which is within her right.
Thank you for the point. I note the point of order. Yes, indeed, we've gone through this one public matter of importance. Your matter of public importance, as I have recorded here, is the impact, national state economy and the impact. I ask that we confine it.
I am trying to comply, but the Prime Minister didn't even give me an opportunity to finish a sentence. He seems quite jumpy, Madam Speaker. You see, Madam Speaker, when we borrow in the first quarter of the fiscal 70 million in unplanned expenditure in a supplemental appropriation budget, and another 120 million, Madam Speaker, in loans. When we increase the public expenditure by 220 million, Madam Speaker, in the first quarter of the fiscal year, that is a matter that directly impacts the national economy. And $90 million of that, Madam Speaker, is for health. So it is directly related, in my view, Madam Speaker. But allow me to develop the point, Prime Minister. You will have a chance to respond. Madam Speaker, I don't know if you saw the press release, Madam Speaker, that was issued by the KHMH Workers Union on the issues, on the things that they could fix with $90 million, not only at the KHMH, Madam Speaker, but to support existing facilities.
Yeah, member, I just want to be clear. It's a clarification that I made earlier about reviving a matter that has already been debated. I think you're referring, and by all means, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm speaking to the member of Albert. If we're reviving a debate on a loan motion that was already debated, we can't entertain that. All I'm asking is, you've raised a point of national importance that is valid to raise, and just to ensure that we're not reviving debates that we've had before in the House.
Madam Speaker, I am not trying to revive a debate. At the end of 2022, Madam Speaker, this government borrowed almost $500 million. In the first quarter of this financial year, Madam Speaker, we are now at $220 million. This administration, who balked at the borrowing of the UDP administration, who balked at the deficit that was left at the end of a 13-year period of government, is now, Madam Speaker, have borrowed over $700 million. Is that not a matter that relates to the present economy of this country, Madam Speaker? I hope that's not what we're saying in this honorable House.
Madam Speaker, if you could kindly allow me.
What's the point of
order?
order?
I think the point of order that she's trying to debate something that was debated at the last House meeting. It is not our fault that she was not here at the House meeting. If she would have been here at the House meeting, then she would have had all the time to debate that matter. But that has been debated and voted and approved and moved on. She needs to stick on the issue of I don't know, I'm kind of get confused all over the place trying to keep it to the economy and trying to touch everything. She needs to be focused, Madam Speaker.
Member, I'm not stifling or preventing it. It is a balance here in trying not to revive a debate that has occurred. Yes, all loan motions obviously have been debated before the House. I've listened to you when you started, did not interrupt, because except for the first matter that was already extensively debated, and then you continued describing the state of economy and the concern. I'm asking if we can just get back to that, member. It's just the balance of not reviving that debate, which is on 38.2.
Madam Speaker, I'm not trying to have a debate. I'm stating a fact. The fact is that this administration, in the first quarter, has borrowed $220 million. That's a fact. It's not a debate. The fact is that in 2.5 years, this government...
national importance that you raise, I'm just asking to bring your contribution to what you rightfully raised, which is your point of importance being the national state of economy. without reviving debates that have occurred in the House. That is all I'm asking.
Madam Speaker, what has not been raised in this House is the mounting loans, mounting liabilities that this government has to pay because of wrongful termination of contracts, Madam Speaker, the infringement of constitutional rights and freedoms of citizens, and settlements that have now become due, Madam Speaker, as a result of cancellations of previously approved projects, like the Commerce Bite Pier in Dangriga. Madam Speaker, the PM touted his horn this morning on Love FM, if you had a chance to listen, that 68,000 fewer Belizeans are now living in poverty. PM, with all due respect, sir, where you live? You see, Madam Speaker, what the PM fails to report to the Belizean people when he makes these pronouncements is that there are different methodologies that have been used in measuring poverty in this country, Madam Speaker. The first is a monetary measure, and the second is the multi-dimensional poverty index.
Again, respectfully to the honourable member from Albert, who is her second term in office, she should know better. When we were on the other side, we've never been allowed to behave like that and to speak on every single matter that comes to mind, because the Speaker or the then Prime Minister immediately shut it down. She needs to, no, she wants a discussion or a debate on poverty. Keep on the issue. She has gone from definitive agreement to the budget, to debate other stuff that was done last week. Now she gone to poverty. We need one item, Madam Speaker, one
Yeah,
item.
it's on the state of economy. I will allow, it's a reference on poverty. I will allow it.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Of course.
You see,
just let me clarify, please, and I painstakingly go through this because I recognize that these meetings are now fully available and accessible to the public, and it's always an opportunity for education and information. The matter of public importance is Standing Order 13. It is not a debate. You're absolutely correct. But in standing on the matter of public importance, it's also important that other standing orders are respected, and that's why they attempt to ensure there's no revival of debates that have occurred before. You're presenting on the state of economy. I accept a reference, or your concern on poverty does fall within that.
It is a matter of the state of the national economy. You see, Madam Speaker, I will wrap up shortly because obviously there is an attempt for me not to speak freely on the issue of the state of the economy, Madam Speaker, but there are two measuring matrices that look at poverty. The first matrix had to do with a monetary measure, and now we're using the multi-dimensional poverty index, Madam Speaker. So again, as with the debt to the GDP ratio, we are not comparing apples to apples. Madam Speaker, there is no indication in the PM midterm report on how our revenue centers are performing, or how the government is preparing to address the impending recession in the U.S. And we all know, Madam Speaker, when the U.S. sneezes, Belizeans catch a cold. And many Belizeans are struggling daily, because I don't know where he lives, to make ends meet. And what What, Madam Speaker? Where in that report did the Prime Minister speak of the forecast as it relates to the export of Belizean goods and services? Madam Speaker, the picture that the Prime Minister tried to paint in this midterm performance report is not the whole picture. And any conscientious and responsible government, Madam Speaker, has a duty and obligation to provide all the facts. Please not take away from no konomono, PM, because the fool they talk, but they're not fool they listen. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the Honorable Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, the government that was taking the people of Belize as kunumono was the previous government. Because for 13 years, that is what they did. They were an irresponsible and had no conscience during the time that they were in government for 13 years. When we could list the amount of money that they have wasted, and I will repeat it for make sure you could remember again. $500 million from Petrocaribe, $600 million from oil money. They spent the money on parties, on tacos, on contracts for their cronies, and they just wasted that money. And now she has the face to come to this house and try $2 billion in loans. And now you have the nerve to come here and accuse us. All of these challenges that we're facing, we did not create those challenges, member from Albert. They were there from the time you left. That's why you were kicked out of office. That's why, how much we have over the side? 26. Exactly, 26. And you are 5, and even 5 in that other side, because one even show up. Yes. Although you will come and try to pontificate in this National Assembly. After 30 years, Madam Speaker, I wanted to end on a high note, but I just can't leave these things that she mentioned, but I'll not go through everything, Madam Speaker. What she talks about on the rebasing, what she does not tell you, Madam Speaker, that the rebasing started under their government. They started the rebasing of the economy. What she's not telling you is that the economy has grown, like it or not, by any metric you may take. Honorable Member from Albert, the economy has grown under the government of the People's United Party. As to poverty, the multidimensional poverty assessment was started under your government, under the UDP. We never just take this off the air. But what you don't want to accept, that by raising the minimum wage to $5, over 30, almost 40,000 Belizeans are earning more money. So how you want to say that people are worse off, man? When you had 30% of unemployment when you left office, 30% of underemployment, and we have an unemployment rate of less than 5%, people are better off. We did not create those problems. You created that over the past 13 years, and we are fixing it. We could go through, and many other different ministers, Madam Speaker, and I think you gave great latitude to the Honourable Member from Albert. The Member of Education would love to answer her on some of the misstatements that she has put in this National Assembly. Only one minister can answer? Only one of us can answer. When she spoke about the cost of living, again, the nerve of the Honourable Member from Albert to come and talk about the cost of living, all of us understand. That is why the Honourable Member from Belize Rural Central, along with the Minister from Orange Rock South, we decided as a cabinet to expand the food basket. You had it at 7, we had it at 40 items now. That's what we've done. We all understand. We did not create cost of living. We did not create it, or you want to blame the government for that too? We import it because most of the items, we don't produce it. We import it. And most of these items, they don't pay tax. Hold on, man. Listen. We did not. Tell me on which of these items did we raise the taxes? On none. I know you have come to this house as if we raised taxes or we did something to had a high cost of living. If you'd have come to us and said, "Make we work together as a government," because you are a part of the government, even as your position, let us find how we could address these issues. But you don't do that. You come here and you just criticize. We have been working on this issue. Almost every cabinet will talk about it. So finally we decided we're going to expand right now. And the honorable member from Kayosot was wanting us to hold it back a little bit more, because what we decided we were discussing in the cabinet to start to put items that we produce in that basket, so that then our people will start to eat more of what we produce. So I said to the honorable member from Kayosot, I said, you know what, let's start with this, and in the next few weeks or months to come, let's see what local products we could put in there, so then people would want to buy our local products. But you never thought about that. You had 13 years, and you did nothing. You think poverty gone up under us? Poverty gone up under the United Democratic Party government. And that's a fact.
2018 figure?
The 2018 figure I did at 52% before COVID. So you imagine how much it went after COVID? And then you come here as we created those problems. We are fixing it. Honorable Member from Albert, you should be congratulating this government that has been working day and night to make the lives of Belizeans better. You talk again. If you were here last week, you would have seen, or the last house meeting, sorry, you would have realized that we came back with a supplementary and we put $2 million more for the food pantry. Unlike your government, you borrowed from the World Bank. So you could give a pantry to everybody before the election, hoping they're going to vote for you. They take your pantry and they still voting out. We are not borrowing from the World Bank or from any other institution. We are using our own hard-earned money and a cap too to be able to try to help more poor people. We understand there's a problem. We know that some people are suffering more than others. But I would have more respect if you'd come to the house and say, you know, I congratulate you on what you have been doing. But maybe I have a few ideas that we could discuss and see how we could make it better. I would have more respect if you would have come for that. But to come and just criticize and twist facts to be able to try to prove your point. You're the leader of the opposition. Even Steve will listen to you. He gone because he realized what you're doing. It's an embarrassment. Madam Speaker, I wish that the opposition would be able to sit with us and say, you know what, I have some ideas. Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? And we could work it out together. At the end of the day, all of us live in one country. For this country to move forward, it can't just be Arinjoak Central or just Albert. It has to be all of us. And that is what the government of the People's United Party is doing. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I now adjourn, Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, I am obliged just to point out before I put the question, 38.2 is the standing order that refers to matters that are before the court or still within the court. 38.3 is that standing order that refers to not reviving debates on matters that are already dealt with, but there is a procedure for when you can, and it's listed there. And standing order 40 is that standing order that deals with anticipation. There is a bill, there is a report that is to be laid before this table, or before the Parliament, my apologies, from a court ruling. And so it's important that the chair is cognizant about standing orders, and I remind members that the chair is guided by an experienced team on the parliamentary procedures. I also recognize, members, that there will never be agreement from the government side on rulings from the chair, nor will there be agreement from the opposition side. I would like to remind members as we end on the day of international parliamentarism, that is the beauty of democracy. I respect it, and I ask you to do the same as provided in standing orders. Happy International Parliamentarism Day. All those in favor, kindly say aye. All those against, kindly say no. I think the ayes have it. The House now stands adjourned.